Did the upcoming Garfield movie partner with the dairy industry to stuff as many cheese references as possible into the film and its marketing? The Garfield movie is coming out May 24th, and I believe there could be some dairy industry marketing going on behind the scenes. This is an animated movie with the title character of Garfield being played by who else than the most obvious choice? Well, maybe not the most obvious choice, but seemingly the only choice to ever play anything in Hollywood. For some reason that no one can really figure out, but it just keeps happening, who other than Chris Pratt? I found out about the Garfield movie through this very interesting ad that I saw on either TikTok or Instagram.
The cheese tax. The cheese tax.
Cheddar.
You gotta pay the cheese tax every time you're cooking. When the cheese comes, Garfield comes looking. Bury me in cheese.
The Garfield Movie in theaters Memorial Day weekend.
My first reaction upon seeing this was, what in the ever-loving fuck did I just watch? It turns out this song was not actually written for the Garfield movie or for the marketing. It was a song that was released by a TikTok account called PuppySongs in 2023. This is a TikTok account that writes these sort of parody songs for the creator's dogs. And the cheese tax song is essentially about the dogs running to the kitchen every time they can tell that the humans are cooking with cheese or using cheese to try to catch cheese crumbs that fall on the floor, or expecting for them to drop some cheese crumbs on the floor, aka the cheese tax. Unfortunately, the song is a bop, and I can't get it out of my head, and you probably won't be able to either, and for that I apologize. And obviously I don't think there's anything suspicious or nefarious about this account posting this song. It was just a fun song written for his beloved pets. Whomst among us hasn't written about a dozen or 1,000 silly songs for our beloved pets? It's just something that happens when your heart is exploding with love and you can't properly express it because they can't understand the words we're saying. And obviously it's a big deal for this creator's song to get used in an ad for a big budget Hollywood movie. But I'm left wondering why. Why was it used? I had to do a little research and refresh my memory on the Garfield comics because I was like, did Garfield love cheese? Like, was that a thing? According to Garfield fan Wiki, cheese is a food that appears in Garfield comics. It is usually seen in the company of mice. What I remember, and what probably a lot of you remember, is Garfield loving lasagna. Historically, especially in the early days of the Garfield strip, lasagna has been Garfield's food of choice. However, as time went on, Garfield's lasagna consumption in the strip has gone down a fair bit, at least in comparison to the first few years. In more recent years, it can be argued that pizza has usurped lasagna as Garfield's favorite, considering how often he eats pizza compared to lasagna, though he still enjoys the latter. So while on the Garfield fan wiki, cheese just has this small blurb talking about like, yeah, cheese appears in the comics, but usually related to the mice, lasagna has its own whole page. I was searching for other Garfield lore related to cheese, and I found this book called The Big Cheese. It's one of the Garfield books. I guess it's sort of like a comic compilation. The description paints it as just a regular comic book, not specifically cheese focused, and in fact the description actually mentions pasta but doesn't mention cheese. Safe to say this doesn't seem to be a book about Garfield's cheese obsession. Before we get into all the evidence I found of the dairy industry possibly partnering with the Garfield movie, I want to touch on the cultural trend or trope of cats consuming dairy. Contrary to the popular depiction of cats drinking milk out of saucers, most cats are actually lactose intolerant and don't have the ability to digest dairy. Eating too much can upset their stomachs and lead to diarrhea and vomiting, and can also lead to obesity if eaten over a prolonged period. And obesity is really serious in cats. Obesity shortens a cat's life and makes them more likely to develop diseases. Even being moderately overweight reduces a cat's life expectancy. A 2.8-fold increase in mortality has been shown in obese cats 8 to 12 years old compared to lean cats. In my opinion, flippantly representing Garfield as this permanently obese cat is a bit ethically questionable. And I know he's a fictional character, and I know he's been around for almost half a century, but I do wonder if Garfield has in some ways shaped our cultural opinions of what a cute, funny cat looks like. Like, how many overweight cats are there on social media that people follow because they're like, oh my god, it's so funny and cute how fat they are. Aside from obesity, why are we representing a cat eating copious amounts of dairy in the Garfield movie? Like I said, the Garfield comic is old, but this portrayal of him being obsessed with cheese is something that was seemingly added in or amped up for the movie. And I wonder what is the reason for that. So let's get into the reasons I think the Garfield movie possibly has dairy industry tie-ins. To be clear, these types of media integrations happen all the time with the dairy industry in the US via the Dairy Promotion Program, which is a US government commodity checkoff program. I have several videos where I talk about this program, the Aubrey Plaza Got Milk video, the interview with Dr. Barnard, and my recent video about dairy in popular films. Watch those for more of a breakdown of how this all works, but these don't look like traditional product placements where you're like, oh, there's a can of Pepsi or there's a bag of Doritos. It could just be someone saying, I love cheese. I drink cow's milk. Because it's not just one specific brand. Every dairy producer in the US pays into this program, and the program then markets dairy to the public in various vague ways that aren't required to be disclosed. I know that a lot of you already know this, but it bears repeating because most people don't. Let's get back to Garfield. So after seeing that cheese tax ad, I watched the trailer for the movie. In the trailer, there's a moment where Garfield is being served this huge portion of lasagna, and John is grating Parmesan cheese on top and says,
Say when?
And Garfield says,
Never, John. Bury me in cheese.
This kind of brought to mind for me the excessiveness of the amount of cheese in lasagna. You've got ricotta stuffed between every layer, then you've got mozzarella on top, then you've got most people adding lots of Parmesan on top. In this popular lasagna recipe, this person actually uses 5 cheeses, as the author admits she's, quote, crazy for cheese. So what more perfect food to hypothetically use to seamlessly promote dairy? In fact, one of the dairy industry's main tactics is to get people who already love cheese, already eat a lot of it, to eat even more of it. You know, don't just sprinkle some Parmesan, bury your food in it. Or even better, bury yourself in it. Another tactic is triggering a craving, which obviously a lot of food advertising does, but then again, most food advertising is transparent about who's advertising. Back to the trailer, we then get this hilarious laugh out loud line.
I apologize in advance. The eating you're about to see will not be pretty. And if you have young children, this would be a good time for them to leave the room.
You'll have to excuse me. I can't control my laughter. There's also a blatant Olive Garden promo at the end of the trailer, which is a more clear, obvious product placement. There is also a line about Olive Garden in another trailer.
You've obviously never been in an Olive Garden that's run out of breadsticks.
And this pretty clear-cut Olive Garden Garfield cross-promotion on Instagram. The Garfield movie also has a Popchips crossover, specifically with the nacho flavor, so this stood out to me because I was like, oh, they're not just partnering with any flavor, they're partnering with the cheesy flavor. But then I actually found out that the Pop Chip nacho flavor doesn't actually have any dairy in it. It is sort of seemingly incidentally vegan. So this maybe isn't the best evidence, but I'd argue that most people associate nacho with cheese, so it definitely still aligns with the cheese-heavy marketing of the rest of the film. But if you're thinking, that one's not a great example and I'm not convinced, put that one out of your mind completely, because there's plenty more that are way more blatant and kind of mind-blowing. I'm going to go through all of those now at rapid speed, and you can let me know what you think. But first I want to remind you to give this video a thumbs up if you're enjoying it, and to let you know if you like my content, you can get even more of it on Patreon, which I launched earlier this month. There's already a bunch of perks and bonus content on there, and I just posted my first ever patron exclusive video, which is a behind the scenes vlog of a vegan brunch I hosted last weekend. If you're interested in that, check out the link below. And now let's get back to our damning dairy evidence for the Garfield movie. Honestly, all I did was Google image image search Garfield movie cheese and I found a ton of evidence. There's no way that I got it all, but the amount that I found just in the first few rows of results is kind of shocking. So let's get into it. In addition to the Popchips partnership, the Garfield movie also partnered with a string cheese company called Cheese Strings. So this was an actual dairy partnership with a dairy company. They also did a partnership with the Magnolia dairy company. There's this limited edition cheese sweatshirt from Pet Shop Dubai with Garfield eating a huge wedge of cheese, which seems to be an official partnership with the Garfield movie. But perhaps the most damning evidence comes from the Garfield movie social media accounts. There's this reel on the movie's Instagram with the caption, "Cheddar cheese is my love language," which is a line from the film that is shown in the reel.
Cheddar cheese is my love language.
There's this trailer for the movie where Garfield is lying on a giant block of cheese and says,
"Oh, cheddar. Probably one of my top 26 favorite cheeses."
There's this video from the official Garfield movie Twitter account in which Chris Pratt plays a game of truth or dairy, which involves him sniffing various types of stinky cheeses. The video ends with this line,
"You're in for an aromatic treat when Garfield sinks his teeth into some super tasty cheese on the big screen."
Why would they have Chris Pratt specifically mention Garfield sinking his teeth into super tasty cheese? As if that's somehow one of the overarching plot points of the movie. There's also this tweet from the Garfield movie Twitter account with a Cheesechella poster, which is clearly meant to be a parody of Coachella. And just like with other times we've seen possible cheese integrations, the Don Quixote episode really comes to mind. The mentioning of many different types of cheeses feels kind of deliberate and suspicious. Those are all the references I was able to gather up in the last few days. To me, it's pretty staggering, just the amount and the emphasis on cheese. I strongly suspect that I won't see this movie, but I would be willing to bet some serious cheddar that there will be way more references to cheese and lines about cheese in the film itself. One thing that really stands out to me about all of this is that this movie is undoubtedly geared toward kids. I imagine most of the people going will be kids and families, you know, parents taking their kids to see it. And we know that that has been a clear objective of the dairy industry and of their marketing, is trying to indoctrinate the next generation into this cultural cheese addiction, this cultural cheese obsession, because they want to focus their marketing dollars at people who will be consumers for the longest period of time, which is children. So there's something very sinister when you think about that, when you think of all the health complications associated with eating cheese, when you think about how many kids are struggling with obesity, and we are just shoving this high fat, high cholesterol, high sodium food onto them shamelessly, with neither them nor their parents being any wiser that they're actually being marketed to, hypothetically. And of course, using a song like that cheese tax song, it is incredibly catching. So let's now associate this movie with that catchy song, and let's have the kids singing about the cheese tax. Hey, pay the cheese tax, give me more cheese, give me as much cheese as you possibly can. Bury me in cheese. Most adults don't even have the media literacy to question this or understand what might be happening to them, and kids certainly don't have it. I think what makes this so suspicious to me is the specific focus on cheese in both the movie and the marketing. And the fact that there seems to be more of a focus on specifically cheese than on lasagna or pizza, Garfield's favorite foods. And while pizza and lasagna are clearly included in the film, and there does seem to be at least one lasagna cross promo, and of course the Olive Garden promo, there is by far much more of a focus on cheese, which would make sense in terms of a partnership. There's no lasagna lobby or a pizza checkoff program, but there is a dairy checkoff, and it is very powerful. So it seems to me that in order to minimize the budget and maximize the profits of the film, some creative liberties may have been taken to extrapolate from Garfield's established love of certain foods that contain cheese and invent a new obsession with cheese on its own. That's my theory, that's my belief. Of course, I'm not saying it's 100% 100% true. This is all speculation, but I think the evidence I've laid out in this video is pretty compelling. So let me know what you think. Does the Garfield movie possibly have ties with the dairy industry? Or is it just reflecting our wider cultural obsession with and addiction to cheese? I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe for more videos. Check out Patreon for even more content from me, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!